Welcome one and all to Last Stop Penn Station podcast featuring Cary Silkin and Ian Riccaboni. They dive deep into Cary's wealth of stories, and no subject is off limits. From the world of wrestling to his ticket agency, growing up in New Jersey, drug-fueled underground days, hustling in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and endless days and nights in New York City, every story is worth telling.
Welcome, everyone. Once again, it is Last Stop Penn Station. I'm Ian Riccaboni, joined by the guest of honor, Cary Silkin. This week has felt like a month, which has felt like a year. A lot of stuff going on, Cary.
Yes. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And Ian, nice to see you. AJ, nice to see you. With the election thing, I don't know how you guys felt or our listeners felt, but it was exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like I was out trying to run a triathlon, just sitting here watching this endless, which seemed to be an endless wanting to get to the finish line type thing. And we knew at the finish line, there's still going to be hurdles.
Right.
But just to get to that. So by Thursday or Friday, I was talking to Gary Juster. I said, I'm so tired. He goes, I know. He goes, I try to stay up to watch the news. He goes, I can't make it. But I'm glad it turned out that Joe Biden won handily.
Yeah. And that margin grows larger and larger as all the votes are counted as well. I mean, he's going to take home the popular vote by probably 6 or 7 million. He already has the largest share of vote by a challenger to an incumbent since 1932, when FDR defeated Herbert Hoover. And it's just it's going to end up being a big win once all the votes are counted.
This is old news, but I still don't understand why we go with this electoral college as opposed to just a popular vote. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it was intended to ensure that all the states had sort of a more equal say, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, especially when some states aren't bound to their electoral college vote by the popular vote. But that's neither here nor there, and that's a large issue for other podcasts to tackle. Why don't we talk about Ring of Honor? There's if we had a popularity contest in election, I don't think Brian Johnson or Dak Draper would win, but I was impressed by both those guys this week. Yes,
it's hard to ever say anything nice about Brian Johnson because he's so good at what he does.
Yes,
as wanting to piss you off, anger you, and I mean, we've both known Brian from day one.
Yeah,
and he's really developed this persona that really works, and he's good in the ring.
He is, and we don't get to see that much, and he is a super hard worker. He is the first one in, last guy out kind of guy. And I'm glad he got an opportunity to show it against Dak Draper, who also, I think we can expect.
What a hunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've met him many times, but I don't, I didn't, I've seen him wrestle.
Yeah.
But seeing him on TV, it's like, fine looking man.
Yeah, he's a matinee level guy here, like a Rock Hudson with the facial structure. I mean, he's the total package, I think. And I think what made that match interesting for me was Brian before the match said, this guy pointing at Dak got the opportunities because he is a hunk, because he's 6'6", because he's this, he's that. So I think there's a lot of truth to what Brian was saying, but Dak delivered just as well as Brian did. And that was our first of two matches. And the second one, Brodie King, he's a monster. Are we looking at maybe a Samoa Joe type guy that's going to come in and shake things up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I learned a lot about Brodie, Dak, Dalton. I know him pretty well.
Yeah.
And Brian Johnson with those great video package promos, biography type that I just really didn't know.
Yeah.
I've really never sat down with Dak Draper and really spoke about, where he had come from. And Brodie King, he was trained partially by Spanky.
Oh.
He's a Southern California guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he credits Spanky as his main trainer, but Spanky was involved in the training facility. Mm-hmm. So when Brodie came to Ring of Honor, I remember talking with Brian and telling me yeah, this guy's really got it. But he came in the game late, which was what, like 27?
27, which is a little late for wrestlers these days. A lot of these guys, like a guy like Mike Bennett always tells his story. He got 15 years old when Mike Bennett joined wrestling, but Brodie King, 27, which is a little later. Even Matt Taven, 23. I saw him point that out.
Interesting.
Yeah, but Brodie King, one of the rare double champions, held the 6-man and the tag titles, in featured roles in Madison Square Garden, won the Crockett Cup. As a singles guy, we haven't seen a whole lot of him, but he was very impressive against Dalton Castle.
Absolutely. I associate him with PCO.
Right.
And it was a great program of Ring of Honor. Once again, we have the Monday night watch parties where if you don't have a Sinclair affiliate in your area, and it's across most of the country, you could watch on Monday nights at no cost on the website and interact with the stars of Ring of Honor on Twitter. And I'm looking forward, because I don't know what matches are coming up.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to next Mondays.
It'll be Shane Taylor and Kenny King. And that's for we talk a lot about the world title ranks, which means that there's going to be these guys jockeying for position. And every win is critical at this point because Final Battles is happening. We can confirm that. It's going to be in early December. There's going to be dates and more information soon on ROHWrestling.com. And quite frankly, Brodie King has called his shot. He wants a world title shot, maybe at Final Battle. Shane Taylor, Kenny King, they've said the same thing. We'll see. So,
well, the one thing I learned about Brodie King was, and I had no idea. And I've spent some time with him, but really I didn't spend enough time with him to find out that he was I was going to use the term punk rock. That's not the right term.
Hardcore.
Yes, yeah. He was in a hardcore band. He's a huge guy.
At least 6'5".
Right. And there was great pictures of him, staged, the classic staged. Boy, if you're in the crowd, you better be ready for this guy.
Nearly 300 pounds. Oh, my goodness.
And the name of his band, which is, there's no such thing, I guess in that realm of music, there's no such thing as bad taste, was God's Hate.
God's Hate, yes.
And when I heard that, it triggered me to, oh yeah, that's right. That guy in the recreation room at Union College in my brief semester and a half at Union College Community School way back. The game room contained a pool table, a foosball table. I don't think there was even Pong yet. And it had some pinball machines. Oh. And of one of which, Big Indian, which is a 4-player game, I have in my pinball. Most of the games in my pinball collection harken back to games that I played, or ones that the Elton John one. That would be a nice one to have. But the Big Indian game was a game in the in my college game room. So what would happen would be, since it was a 4-player game, 4 people would be playing. And if you wanted to play next, you put up your quarter, might have been a dime. You put up your quarter or your dime, and whoever had the lowest score of the 4 competing players, well, assuming they didn't want to play another game and spend another quarter, they're out. And you get to get involved in this it wasn't even a round robin tournament. You just get to play. So you don't want to play. But where I'm going with this is I heard the most offensive, worst, despicable curse word of all time when this when this game was going on. The college, community college has a bunch of misfits. There's some people there because they want to be, but there's a lot of people like myself that don't have anything better to do or didn't know what they wanted to do. So I'll go to community college. And so there was this guy, he was a really good player. And we're talking 1975, 76. And it was more of a long hair kind of era. But this guy, he had like the classic biker wallet
with the
chain that hooks onto the belt, right? And he didn't look the light hippie type. He was sort of the opposite. Anyway, this guy was really good, and he would get so angry and frustrated when the ball would go down. And when he would wait, he wouldn't do this every time, but at the point when the ball's going out and he's going to lose his spot, right? And like in fourth place, as the ball went out, he would unclip it was like a fast move. He would unclip that chain from leaving the wallet in his pocket and unclipping the part that's on the belt. And he would throw this chain at the beautiful back glass of the machine. And he would dispense this vulgarity. Now, what could be worse than something like motherfucker?
That's a pretty bad one.
Or cocksucker.
Yeah.
Or, the George Carlin's the 7 words you can't say. Well, the Brodie King title triggered this. When the ball would go out and he was out of the game, he threw that chain, and it was a beautiful game. He almost breaking the back glass. Oh. And as the chain would hit it, he would yell, "God's cock!"
Wow! Wow!
Yep. So if someone has something, how
do you even formulate something like that? Originality. Yes, but who puts a phallus on a, who does that?
Well, I thought of another one.
Oh, geez.
When I used to hang
out.
More
phalluses?
No.
Oh.
The opposite.
Oh.
When I used to hang out at Kelly's Bar in Hoboken, New Jersey, we're yet to get into my Hoboken experience. There was a little guy, Louis, and he was a barber, and he lived across the street, and he would close his barber shop at noon. And Kelly's was a hard drinking bar. It opened. Hoboken was always a industrial town. We're talking the 50s and 60s, and obviously it regentrified in the 80s, especially the late 80s. But Louis, of Italian descent, he would say, I'd ask him, he would all of a sudden go, "Puntana Madonna."
Oh, God. No. Why
Can you
would he
translate that for us, please?
Madonna's vagina?
It's like
the mother's.
Yes.
Yeah, the mother. Oh, God.
Yes.
Oh,
I asked him once, and he was like,
who thinks of this?
The holy cunt of mother.
Right. What?
The cunt of the holy mother.
Who is out there thinking of these
Louis
things?
the barber.
my God.
Fontana Madonna. It sounded very,
It sounds
very
eloquent.
operatic.
Right.
Right.
It sounds very, sounds like something that, Bruce Springsteen would say at the end of at the end of Badlands, just kind of mumbling under his breath as the crowd goes, oh, oh, oh. Fontana Madonna. Oh.
Last Stop Penn Station, the only podcast where you can increase your vocabulary of the worst words possible to say, as well as some nice stories and some stories of some degenerate nature. I have a shout out to you personally. You've been getting so many accolades.
No.
We've been saying, oh, it's true. And I was talking to our good friend and Ring of Honor alumnus, Bushwhacker Luke.
Oh, yeah.
And Bushwhacker Luke was singing your praises. And as Jim Cornette and many other respected pro wrestling legends had, and Luke said to me, mate, next time you tell Ian, tell him that Luke put him over. I'm going to put him right over the top rope with a stiff arm.
Oh, man. I appreciate the compliment.
No,
Luke.
he said, as my friend Beverly said, he said, how does he know all this stuff? He's very knowledgeable with not just wrestling, but music and politics. And Luke's a faithful listener.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, Luke. And he got some FaceTime on Ring of Honor this week. Yeah, Luke, there was a photo. Brian Johnson was describing how he was a fan.
I did. So wait a minute.
His entire life. And
but he was with the Bushwhackers.
Yeah, he's with the Bushwhackers. Yeah, so Butch and Luke got a nice cameo this week. And the Warlord, who's a very nice man. I don't know that he's a listener, but a very nice man, the Warlord. But thank you, Luke. Appreciate it. And we had a couple listeners, speaking of listeners, ask about FFL. You called me in a cold sweat the other night because you said, Ian, I got one more story about FFL that I got to tell you. And last week we went around the world and we ended up back in the Big Apple. We were talking about FFL.
Right. And her love of Jack Cafferty.
And I went home and looked him up. I knew of him, but didn't realize he was as big of a star as he was in New York.
Well, if you were in New York City, I was a Jersey suburbs guy. I think he was on NBC. I forget. He was on one of the major news for many, many years. Mm-hmm. But the one little story I forgot, Louise was not always on the dole. You know that expression? On the county.
Okay.
Yeah. On welfare.
Gotcha.
On public assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah, On the Dole is way back.
Okay.
And I'm a W.C. Fields fan. There's a great W.C. Fields movie where he's always got the antagonistic mother-in-law. Everyone hates him in the mother-in-law because if his smoking and drinking continues, I can't stand it. I am going on the county. So Louise was not always on the county. She had somehow, I guess when Radio John was hanging out with her, and she sort of lost her mind. She was probably in her late 40s, maybe early 50s. But prior to that, she had a career as a dental hygienist, like an assistant in the dentist office.
Sure.
Problem was, due to her large size, and that's the last place I want to go is the dentist.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll out myself. So maybe I go, I'm like over a year overdue, even for a cleaning.
Me too.
I just don't want to go. They always want to do that. They always want, we should do this. Let's take x-rays. Let's
do it now.
Right.
They're very persuasive.
Right. So Louise was this assistant, but it was very hard for her to procure work because of her size.
Oh.
So this is coming from Radio John,
who ran into a bus, so maybe not the most reliable source. Somehow
John says, Louise, I said, did she ever work for John? He goes, yeah. She, one of those people that cleans your teeth. I go, what do you mean cleans your teeth? She goes, she was like, worked in a dentist's office. You go, but she couldn't hold the job.
No.
I go, why? He goes, well, she was too big. Because she couldn't really, with the close quarters. So the final straw came when, hi, Lamb Chop, a kindly dentist somewhere on the west side in Hell's Kitchen, probably running wasn't the greatest practice.
Sure. Probably distributing some of the numbing medication out the back door.
Right. Yeah. Said to Louise, look, I'll give you a job. His regular girl was out, so he needed help for a week. Happened to be in the middle of the winter.
Oh.
So she went in and she's working, and it was on her very first day. And Radio John says, yeah. So she tells me the dentist saying, oh, can you hand me this? They're handing me this instrument. And he asked for something where she had to bend over. And so her backside, the room had a window, it was just a small room. And to her rear, literally, was the window. So when she bent over this one time to pick up this particular instrument, her rump not only hit the window, but popped out the glass. Didn't break it. Just like it might have been one of those plastics,
sure.
Pop, and this 15-degree weather starts shooting in through the dentist's office. And the guy, once they got rid of the person who was being worked on, the dentist had to dismiss her.
Oh,
gave her a few dollars, and Louise went on her way.
Poor Louise. I had a teacher in high school. We were reading the great I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is a wonderful book by Maya Angelou. There's a very graphic depiction of sex in that book, and maybe rape, but I'm not sure. Maya Angelou, I can't quite remember, describes a corn cob as she describes a phallus as a corn cob, and my teacher got into my buddy Shane's face, who was sitting next to me, and she was a larger woman, and she said, "Say it, Shane, say it. What does it mean? What does it mean when she says corn cob?" And as she got closer, her butt got closer to her desk, because it was his desk, or my desk, his desk, and then her desk. And as she was saying it, she was bending down and getting in his face and kind of moving her butt around emphatically. And as she yelled, "Penis," she means penis. All of the books slid across her desk and went right into the trash. So this is a thing again, occupational hazard, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, these.
Oh, bless Louise and bless our 9th grade English teacher. I know I have a listener from high school teacher, so I won't mention the name here.
Okay.
So, but
yeah, things happen.
Yeah.
I was. We're working on the Last Stop Penn Station memoir with Mike G. And we're going in no particular order. I see stuff. So I was looking at stuff Mike had done in the beginning. He has a chapter called Russian Origins, which is basically about my family, because the majority of my family at Mike's, they were, were the Russian Jews that migrated over. My mother's father was Irish Catholic, but that's another story. He came from Ireland.
Oh,
but anyway, this brings us back to the great Uncle Gunny,
right? Whose picture graces us.
Right.
We see him every time we record. He and Captain Lou.
And we told the story already about Uncle Gunny selling the unbreakable dishes in Texas. Right. Uncle Gunny claiming he saw a guy getting hit. And these stories were omitted from the book. I said, these have to be in the book.
Right.
Uncle Gunny telling me at 10 years old about seeing these two guys in that fight where I was like, why were they fighting? He goes, I don't know, but they were on a big hill. Now we've told the story, but we'll tell it again. And in my 10-year-old wonderment, I'm like, wow. Yeah. And he says, yeah. And one of them had a stick. I'm like, maybe we didn't tell this.
No,
I'm like, really? I go, what happened, Uncle Gunny? He goes, well, they were arguing so much. And he was a good storyteller. He goes, so as I was looking up the hill, he brings the hill back in. The guy with the stick picks it up and hits the other guy over the head so hard that the other man's kneecaps rolled down the hill. And I just said, wow. Well, and then there was...
That's a pretty clear picture. I mean, you tell me that, and I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too many kids' books with Zach. I see it in my head.
Well, and then I text this to you guys. AJ's heard this. Gunny had this, and I had a long discussion. I had a 10-minute discussion about this. This saying, this phrase, this utterance that Gunny used to say. Now, I know I haven't brought this up, and I texted to you guys.
Yes.
And I would like you to repeat the words after me. Ready?
Okay.
Baseball.
Baseball.
Football.
Football.
Swimming in a tank.
Swimming in a tank.
When you get up.
When you get up.
You get a crank.
You get a crank.
Simus.
Simus.
That's it. Now, so I was telling him, like, gee, like, what was, and Gunny would say this to me, and I would say to, like, my father, I go, oh, Dad, what's Simus? He goes, it's like a Jewish bread pudding. So we look at it again. And I was asking Mike about this. And I said, how do you think he came up with this? So Mike's to the best of his memory, he goes, well, Gunny didn't really like sports. And I used to try to get him to watch wrestling, which he turned out to like. But he didn't like baseball or football or
swimming in the tank.
He used to want to watch the Westerns.
Okay.
And this is the era of Gunsmoke and Bonanza and the Rifleman.
And Rawhide.
Right.
Yeah.
And, Mike is 5 years older than me. So at the time, there was wrestling on like 3 times a week. There was one from Connecticut.
Ooh.
And this is in the mid-'60s. There was one from Sunnyside Garden and one from the wrestling capital of the world, Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. So Mike says, I was like, Grandpa, that was his grandfather, can't we watch wrestling? Or can we go across the street? There was a park, big park, Weequahic Park. He goes, we have a catch. Because Mike's father, his real father, was Harold. That's a whole nother story. He abandoned Mike's mom, Reba. And so Mike was raised by Reba and Debbie, my father's sister, and Gunny. So he didn't really have a father figure. He had plenty of friends, but he wanted, the friends were around, so he wanted to go get Gunny to have a catch. And Gunny just said, baseball, football, just swimming in a tank. And when you get up, he goes, no, because when you get up, you get a crank, which in like Yiddish, it was like a pain in the side. Now, where he threw in Simus, Jewish bread pudding, like hog's dick.
You're right.
That's it.
I had a baseball coach who would finish sentences with Manischewitz. He would do stuff,
What do you do?
He'd say Manischewitz.
For what? In reference to what?
Sure. Riccaboni, second base. Stopa, first base. Manischewitz. And you would just complete sentences.
So that was our hog's dick.
Hog's dick, yeah.
Yeah.
Simus.
Yeah. So yeah, we went over so we were talking about these different family members and these stories. I don't want to bore the listeners, but these are colorful. These are colorful characters. You know, these are people that were brought up during the Depression era and really had to make it on their own and hustle. Mm-hmm. That's why Gunny was selling unbreakable dishes in Texas and was a door to door, with a tin man.
Right.
Which brings me back to the great Uncle Henry. Now that's my mom's side of the family, who got us the tickets the first time that I went to wrestling. Mm-hmm. With my dad took me to Sunnyside Gardens, which did not enforce the 14-year-old rule.
Right, which Madison Square Garden did because of the riots, right?
Well, right. After that famous match with Antonina Rocca, it was Antonina Rocca and Eduardo Perez, not Miguel, Eduardo Carpentier against, it was Dick the Bruiser and somebody, I should know this. There was a huge riot. Mm-hmm. And after that,
no kids. And that extended to boxing also. But Henry got us those tickets. And Henry was an odd character. He was a confirmed bachelor. Was he gay? Who knows? But he was a confirmed bachelor. He lived in New York City his whole life. And he was in the fringe end of the entertainment business. His claim to fame was that he was Benny Goodman. Benny Goodman was big star.
He was Benny Goodman's advance man. Well, this might have been on like one tour, but somehow he hung on and had these grade B and C people he was associated. No one would know these names. The Vincent Lopez Orchestra, which was like three or four steps under like Tommy Dorsey or Glenn Miller. And some woman named Mae DeRose, I got to Google her. But Henry was a character, and he lived in the city, and he lived in hotels. Oh. He lived at the Hotel Astor on 46th Street between Broadway and 6th Avenue. Oh. And you know who when he was in town, one of the wrestling greats, the wrestlers, we told the story a few weeks ago about Tony Atlas, and that was at that Holiday Inn, or that now it's a Hilton something.
Right, Hilton Garden.
Right, yeah. But they used to stay at the Holland Hotel, which was 42nd Street near 9th Avenue. And there was an office in there, and the wrestlers would stay there. But Pampero Firpo.
Oh, who Randy Savage credits as one of his inspirations.
When he would come to the territory, he would stay at the Astor. So Henry knew Pampero Firpo. And I was like, really, Uncle Henry? Because he had a run in WW or WF before I was watching, and then he came back during the Pedro Morales era. Mm-hmm. And Henry knew I loved wrestling, and I was probably 14, 15, so he knew that I sort of knew that everything I was seeing wasn't what it was supposed to be. Right. And he says, he says, yeah, Firpo stayed. I go, oh, wow. I go, did you talk to him? He goes, yeah. You know what he said to me the other day? I go, what's that? He goes, Henry, those stupid people, they don't know I'm an actor. But yeah, Henry was a classic. So when the X-rated movies.
Oh, this is a turn.
Well,
all right.
When the triple X's started coming out.
Okay.
And
we're talking Deep Throat. We're talking
exactly
75.
No, 72, 70, okay. 71, 72.
Okay.
Deep Throat. Behind not the green door, okay. Behind the green door, the great Devil and Miss Jones.
Oh, you're right. Not that I've ever seen or heard of any of these.
Who's the star of Devil and Miss Jones?
Oh, it was
Georgiana Spelvin.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, Henry,
we digress.
Henry, we're at some family something or other, and it might have been Henry with some of my, the Debbie and Gunnys of the world. And like Gunny says, Henry, hey, Henry, they got those trucks. You're still living in, they didn't see each other that often. You're still living in New York City, right? He goes, yeah, Gunny. He goes, oh, have you been in any of those XXX movies? And Henry would say, he'd say, oh, they're horrible. He goes, they should shut them down. He had a saying, they shouldn't be allowed. And so Connie's like, well, have you seen it? And he goes, yeah, I went once. It was horrible. After the third time it ran, I had to leave. That was his sense of humor. And the last note on the great Uncle Henry was we were at some kind of a bar mitzvah or wedding or something. And I had this Uncle Stanley. He really was. You must have had someone you called an uncle that really wasn't an uncle or even a cousin.
Yeah, we have a couple of those. Yeah.
Right. So this Stanley was married to somebody who was a cousin, and he just sort of remained around. Yeah. Well, the woman passed away, and after a few years, Stanley was he was in his early 50s, and he was dating, and he came up with this girlfriend, this woman. Now, if you came up with the name of a lady who was like Brodie, what name would you, not a wild name, but just a common name? What, give me
Janet.
Janet? How about Hannah?
Yeah, I can do, yeah.
Well, it was hard-boiled Hannah.
Not to be confused with hard-boiled Haggerty.
Right. No, she wasn't that. I just called her that. But anyway, we're at this family function. I was 14 or 15, and Henry wasn't a big drinker, but you're at a wedding, so he's having a drink. Well, Hannah was. She's pounding a few down. And it was at a bar, prior to the dinner. It's like the hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah.
So I'm within earshot. And Hannah, who's like 3 stools down from Henry, goes, now Henry was like 70. Hannah was probably 50s, trying to look like she's, like she's 30. But anyway, she yells down at Henry, excuse me, she yells, hey, Henry, can you still get it up?
At a wedding?
Yeah. And Henry shoots right back to her. Yeah, Hannah, you sure said a mouthful.
Oh, jeez.
Right?
Oh.
So he was a quick-witted gent.
Yeah. Holy, wow. What a family.
Yeah, we were just going over all these things. I was trying to shove them into, get them into the book. And we've discussed a lot of these. So yeah, interesting characters in my family. Lots of stories. So I'm sure some more will come to mind as we go along. And I teased, and I teased, we did the FFL, and I teased FFF.
FFF.
And I used to say to the Briscoes, after they got the hang of FFL, and I'd see the Briscoes before a show, usually in New York. I'd say, hey, FFL ain't coming tonight. And Mark's like, ooh, shit. And I said, but I got good news. And Jay's like, what's that, boss? I go, she's being replaced by FFF. And Mark would go, ooh, FFF. And Jay goes, hey, boss, man, you mind if I ask what that stands for? I go, no, it's all right. You can ask. And at the same time, Mark says, boss, man, what does she do? I go, well, she's a go-go dancer. And he's like, ooh. So what is her name? I go, well, it's Fuckface Francis.
Oh, God. Give me Billy Ripken flashbacks here, but that's a different story.
Well, how does it? Well, so we'll get to that. Yeah, but So Mark says,
Oh my God.
why they call her that? I go, why do you think you get a name like fuck face?
Oh my
It wasn't because she was ugly.
Holy moly.
Yeah, so
Wow.
she would work the go-go's that had side action.
Oh, what era is so again, is this 60s, 70s?
No, this was, we used to go to this place in Rahway, New Jersey.
I've been to the Great Rahway. Yeah.
And there was this deep in the industrial section, there'd be a go-go bar. And they still even have, well, maybe not with the COVID, but our friend of myself and AJ's, our friend Russ was talking about these go-go places in Newark, you know, and there was action plenty, but this place in Rahway, that's where I saw, you know, Francis. And there was another woman that, you know, when you go to the butcher, if you ever go, well, this is another old school thing. But when I was a kid, and maybe you guys have seen this, and maybe some of our listeners have, or some haven't, they would have the like sausages or hot dogs, but they'd be like tied together.
Sure, the Allentown, the farmer's market.
There you go.
Yeah.
So one of the dancers, not Fuckface Francis, but one of the other talented dancers was able to insert.
Holy, whoa.
Not just the sausage, but the, you know, the group of sausage.
Holy, gee, what was going on in the 60s?
It was a special attraction.
Okay.
It was a special attraction, you know.
Well, okay, I can't believe.
And this wasn't the 60s. This was like the 70s and 80s.
70s and 80s. And so, I mean, there's Jersey has blue laws to this day in terms of Sundays when you can be open, things like that. Was this legal? Was this kind of a side thing? Was this don't tell, don't ask? Don't
it wasn't.
Tell?
It was definitely under.
Off the,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And how do you even know to ask for something like that?
Well, they don't ask. They just performed.
What? Really?
Yeah. Well, listen. In Manhattan, going back to Manhattan, jumping back into Times Square.
Mm-hmm.
The Show World Center,
one of the all-time legendary locations,
was the Mecca. I took last year, I think I was with AJ on our way to one of the many times we went to Hadestown or walking up 8th Avenue. They had just, it had been open up until early 2019. It had a run from almost a 50-year run.
Wow.
And, but in its heyday, the Show World Center was not one, not two, not three. It had 4 floors of adult delights.
Wow.
And mainly, all right. So you walked into the show.
Yeah, walk us through what you did, because I can barely muster to look at, and I'm no prude. We've talked about sex educator, dildo briefcase, you name it. I've been there. But I'm, to this day, a 33-year-old man. I still, there's the sex shop on Lehigh Street. I look at it and I'm like, and I might be interested in some of the things in there, but I can't even imagine going to a 4-story sex.
Well, an interesting thing about the Show World Center was that it was all straight.
Oh, okay.
Most of the places would have a section of all male stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the Show World Center they wanted to, it was almost the same as we sell cocaine. We don't sell crack.
Okay.
We don't need to cater to the gay clientele, where you're going to get the cruising. Gotcha. And the guys hanging out and the glory holes.
Yeah.
And all that
I think
stuff.
it's the first time we've mentioned glory. We're almost 40 episodes in. I can't believe it's the first time the glory hole has come up.
Yet, I recently heard Jim Carnett bring up the glory holes.
Yes, so he beat us to it.
If it's okay with JC, it's okay with us. But so the Show World Center, it had a basement.
Okay.
And it was, booths with movies, maybe the basement. Now this is, I would slip in there in like starting in like the late 70s. And there were so many places to go. But anyway, the Showworld Center, I think the basement at the time would have the stuff that was really taboo. Like they certainly wouldn't have underage stuff. That they wouldn't do.
Good. But
they would have maybe some bestiality.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Yeah, right. And other funky, other funky type off the grid.
Yeah, the other stuff we were talking about, the consensual hookups, I'm okay with that. That's probably where I draw the line. I would not have visited the basement. That's where I'm drawing the line.
And remind me when I get through the Showworld Center, did we tell the story about the great Animal Lover movie?
Oh, no, thank you.
All right. Well, that's another story unto itself. But anyway, the first floor were your peep show, your regular peep show booths.
Sure.
And they didn't let you had to buy tokens and spend them.
Yeah.
And there were always guys like, come on, this ain't a bus station.
Okay.
And one of the battle cries was like, let's drop them. In other words, if the booth is closed, the guy would see the light outside. There was like a light, if it was green, the movie was running.
Yeah.
If it was red, the movie was over.
Okay.
So they wouldn't let guys, there'd be guys like walking around, like hitting the door. Come on, let's drop them. Drop the tokens.
Yeah.
So the first floor was, basically these movies. Then when you got to the second floor, and through the whole place, besides the guys who were monitoring the use of the tokens, there was a PA system, which I'll get to in a minute, which was giving the announcements of the day.
We're talking about.
I'll get to that.
Yeah,
so the second floor, and if anyone wants to see what we're talking about, to the best replication that it's been is that great HBO show, The Deuce.
Okay.
And in one of the seasons, they really replicated Showworld Center as it was. But on the second floor, there was 2 full circles. So in other words, there were booths that went around, and you went in the booth and you put in your token, and this piece of wood would come up, and there was naked girls dancing.
Oh.
And then there was some plastic. Then they realized at a certain point, if we get rid of the plastic, then the girls could, give me $1, honey, and you could cop a feel.
Yeah.
But they would only give you like 45 seconds of time. So in order to be what is commonly done in the booths by the customer,
sure,
and being able to put the tokens in without the window, and if you have your hand in the window,
right,
there was a chance of getting stuck.
Oh,
right.
Oh,
so they would have for a quarter these girls, and there was like 3 or 4 of them. And then on the other side of the room, you had to buy the $1 token. And for $1, one single $1, $1.
Yeah.
There were people having live sex. They would be on a platform, like when you go see a concert in the round.
Right. Oh my God. So they put them for everybody to see.
Right.
What?
And so I mean, let me check this out. And the people are having sex. They must have had like a dozen workers, because how long can you
Did you get to, were they people you might see in the movies? Did they ever advertise like a star or a?
Well, that's well, we're going to get there.
Okay.
And then you had the fourth floor.
Okay.
And the whole time you were in the Show World Center, there was this carnival barker voice.
Okay.
Guy would be like, welcome to the show. It's similar to when we told our carnival story about the drug addict and the 27-inch woman.
Right.
But this guy, I think the guy was like, welcome to the Show World Center. Gentlemen, the greatest adult entertainment experience in the world. You're here. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And it was no matter what hour it was always in 5 minutes. So if it was 1:05, the show's starting at 1:10. If it was 1:20, the show's starting at 1:25. In 5 minutes, make your way up to the top floor. That's right. Please join us in the furry beaver. It was a special. They even had a special name for the fourth floor room. It was the Furry Beaver Room.
Wow!
And gentlemen, today only.
It's every day.
Misty Wet and her dildo dipping beauties will be.
This is even making me blush. And
will be on stage. And then to really, the guy that was this might have been like, I don't even think it was $5. Might have been like $3. This is in the 70s. So that'd be like $10.
Yeah.
So
seems like a bar. How did they make any money?
So you had the people that exclusively went to see this, to see the great Misty Wet.
So there were people getting pumped up when they heard this announcement.
But the people that were on the fence, the guy would tease them and say, gentlemen, the legendary Misty Wet and her dildo dipping beauties. If you haven't seen this show, you haven't seen New York City. Gentlemen. This
is Cat's level of promotion here.
Gentlemen, Misty Wet and the dildo dipping beauties. They'll take it in the mouth. They'll take it in the rear. They'll take it in the side. And the guy would have a pregnant pause. He goes, gentlemen, they take it anywhere. Hurry, hurry, hurry. 5 minutes till showtime.
Well, and there would be reactions. Like if you walked in and can you describe to me did you see it in people's faces when they're hearing this? Did it make your adrenaline go up? Because I could see some friends that might not have experienced something like this that would they would get excited. Were there people that would get motivated? Did you ever see the sales pitch work?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There'd be like a couple of these guys be like, ooh, okay. They'd be running up,
taking out the wallet,
running up the stairs. Sorry, listeners. I did not get to see Misty. I demurred from seeing Misty Wet. I mean, I'm seeing people having sex,
right?
Oral sex and regular old sex, regular good old sex on the rotating platform.
It rotated.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's why I mentioned the concert in the round.
Holy.
Yeah, so check it out. When you were watching, whether you were watching the girls by themselves,
sure,
or you went to the dollar, there was no reason for the girls to rotate. They would just walk around to whatever windows were open.
Yeah.
But you were able to see the other fans, just their faces. Right?
Weird question. Did that take away or did that add to the experience?
Nobody, I don't think anyone was really watching the other people.
So it's kind of like, you've been on stage, you've been in a wrestling ring where the lights are so bright, there's people there, but you might not be able to see them.
You could see them.
Oh,
but
okay.
people were looking at the girls.
Gotcha.
Or looking at the people having sex.
Yeah.
Maybe there was some oddball getting off on looking at the other people's reactions.
Kind of the voyeurs looking at
Right.
yeah.
Right. So
Interesting.
yeah, so that was the scene at the Show World Center.
Wow. And this was all, I mean, Show World, the way you just, it's not that far from Times Square, some landmarks that people are familiar with.
Right between 42nd and 43rd Street by 8th Avenue.
That, I mean, you could less than 5 minutes.
You know, and the other, and there were many other places to go.
Right.
You know, right across the street from Port Authority, there was there was two giant peeperies.
Wow.
And one of them catered to the gay clientele.
Mm-hmm.
They, you know, had it downstairs, and but you know, and there was loaded every booth had a glory hole.
Really?
Yeah. There might have been like, but you had to be careful. I mean, there were hustlers. There were there were certain places that had a little bit of decorum, but these ones I'm talking about right across from Port Authority, mm-hmm. There was it was rough trade.
Yeah. So walk us through that. I mean, that's a time of where gay acceptance was not a thing as much. Were there people that intentionally tried to hurt folks identified as gay? Were there people trying to hustle them out of money to lead them to an expensive sexual encounter, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was. There was no gay bashing.
Okay.
Maybe there was, but that was not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
The issue at these places was the more dangerous male hustler types.
Okay.
Would go there and try to, you know.
You sample the goods and then.
Well, you had to pay. You would have to pay up. But there were, you know, but there was very rough trade. There were other places that were more monitored and more secure. Mm-hmm. And although they would allow that kind of activity, it was safer. So that, you know, the ripoff artists, and don't forget, because of with the booths, people were doing drugs.
Oh yeah,
and it was dangerous. But one last thing about the Show World Center.
Yeah, and
the thing about all these places was a good amount of the business they did were the business people, and the travelers going back to Port Authority. So let's say, my bus is 35 minutes. I got to wait 35 minutes. Well, I'll go rub one off at Show World, right? Or I'll go across the street. You know, honor myself. Right.
It's never right. I live for the Port Authority.
Why sit there and read the New York Post? Why get a copy of National Geographic? I'll go across the street to the dangerous place and partake in some glory hole activity. It's only a quarter. Anyway, wasn't interested in that, but he would go to the show. So he says, yes, I go to the Show World Center. He goes, and you know, I got like 30 minutes to the bus. So I'm like, because to walk from the Port Authority to the Show World Center is like a minute.
Yeah.
So he gets to the Show World Center. He does what he does. It's a hot summer day. And he does what he does. And the Show World Center had good security also. And it included having a security guard. It was like a retired Rosie Greer, you know, or like a tugboat would have retired. Okay. He could be sitting on a stool, smoking a cigarette. So like some of these bad apples that, you know, even in the straight Show World Center, mm-hmm. they were pickpocket because it was just clusters of guys. Yeah. So they tried to keep, they didn't want to have bad reports. Anyway, goes in, he goes in the booths, just a movie. He does his thing, and he pulls his pants back up, and now he's headed for the bus. He's heading out of the place, And he's looking at his watch. He goes, oh, good, I still have 15 minutes. And he says, so as I'm walking out the door into the, and he hates hot weather. He goes, and it's like 97 degrees. As I'm walking out the door, I feel this guy smack my shoulder. It was a security guard, but he was doing it he was trying to be nice. And so I turn around and I look at the guy, and the guy, as he takes a drag on the cigarette and doesn't even look me in the eye, goes, yo, my man, you got some cum on your arm. So it was a public service. You wouldn't want him walking down the street and getting on the bus with some jism.
Oh my goodness! Thank goodness for the security guard.
Thank goodness for the security guard.
How many people do you think it happened to that just got on an MTA bus or a New Jersey Transit bus?
Well, you had to be really careful of the floors.
Oh, I bet. Oh God.
Hey, don't forget when the camel,
yeah, go back and listen. Episode 4 or 5.
That was one of the lower, hey, you're employed, but one of the lower jobs on the labor of labor was to be a booth cleaner.
I'll tell you what, though, it's an honest day's work. We won't shame the sex workers or those that clean up.
No, and a place like the Show World Center, maybe not in the beginning, but eventually they had everything like tiled.
Oh,
not the walls.
Yeah,
because but the floors were tiled. So a place like the Show World Center, when a customer would leave a booth, whether it was necessary or not, they would clean the booth for the next customer to make way.
That's good sanitary, and that brings us to today. If we would have these sanitary practices, wearing masks, using hand sanitizer, we can beat this thing. And I think that's where we'll tie a knot on the brief history of Show World.
Well, that's right, and I still have the rest. We'll save it.
Yeah.
The rest of the Times Square sex scene.
Yeah.
I mentioned that we did this Show World, and we did these couple places across the street from Port Authority, but there was a cornucopia of places, including, I mean, where Ralph the Mummy stayed for 8 days. You know, the Big Apple Theater, the Big Apple Theater. Now, when you see Times Square, where 7th Avenue and Broadway are coming in that triangle, this was on what would be, I always get confused, but 7th Avenue goes towards the garden. Mm-hmm. It was on the Broadway side.
Okay.
And there was Nathan's on the corner of 43rd and Broadway, and the Big Nipple right next to it.
Wow.
Taking the whole rest of the block to 42nd Street.
2 New York institutions.
And there were other theaters right in the heart of Times Square, which we'll get to, with all types of activities. Not to mention the whole 42nd Street.
Right.
The whole thing.
And for those that don't know, the avenues, they run north to south. The streets run east to west. So that'd be a long sex scene on 42nd Street.
Right. And I'll throw in some other, when we do this, I'll throw in some other places that were around the city. There were some, obviously in the West Village.
Sure.
There was Christopher Street Bookstore. Oof.
Oh, yeah.
That was a hotbed.
There you go.
That was right on Hudson and Christopher.
Yeah.
And all kinds of places.
Oh, I got the nicest compliment I ever got on Christopher Street.
I'm sure. What was it?
I had a nice Paisley women's jacket on. And
Paisley women's jacket.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I got it at a thrift store. It was white with red paisley. And I got honey, you look great in that. And it made me feel really nice.
I'm sure you did look great in that.
It was kind of a cat call, but that one felt good. It was a nice pick-me-up.
Well, we all need a compliment. We all need something to uplift us, especially in these times. I've been having a rough time. The last 6 months, 7 months, I've been having a rough time. It's just it seems like this is endless. Glad the election's over, and I thought I was going to get a sigh of relief, but
we got the vaccine on the way.
Yes.
So our healthcare workers should be getting that by December, which that's a relief. And they say it's about 90% effective, which might be the best shot we got right now. And Dr. Fauci today, as we're recording this, said that it should be available for the public in April.
Well, as my mom would say, or her mom, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yeah.
And not.
Oh, how do you come up? I mean, there's part of me that's obviously sacrilegious, but then the other part is you got to be kind of a creative pervert to come up with that. I mean,
yes. Yes.
And maybe that could be the episode title, Creative Pervert.
Right. We can't call the episode God's Cock.
No, we cannot do that. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Next week, we could talk about some of the other vaunted, the hollowed halls of the New York sex scene in the 70s and 80s next week. This was fun. I'll save the questions I have for next week too, because
ask me one.
All right, I'll ask you one. How do you find out about this? Is it word of mouth, or are they that? I mean, Show World's in your face, but some of the more low key locations.
They were all in your face.
Okay.
In Times Square.
Yeah.
With giant marquees and up and down 8th Avenue, all across 42nd Street, and on these blocks in between, it would be like, Capri Adult, like marquees, Capri Adult Theater, 24 hours of the best Euro sex films in the world. And it's, with the blinking lights.
Yeah.
So as far as underground stuff, like the Christopher Street bookstore, they didn't have any signs.
Okay.
You just had to know it was there.
Gotcha. And were you ever in fear of embarrassment walking in, thinking somebody might see you, and anything like that? Was there any stigma, or was this really kind of open this time?
You know what? I did have when I got into the ticket hustling.
Okay.
Full time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking 86 to 89, 90. Then I was always, I wonder if I'm going to see one of the other scalpers.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, and I did.
Whoa.
Naturally, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I remember one time being in a particular place that was on was just a few doors down from Studio 54.
Wow. Okay.
The David All Male Theater.
Okay. That sounds very classy.
It is. And now that was a place that had good safety protocol. It was relatively clean.
Yeah.
It had whatever. It had different rooms, and it had a theater. But I went in there one time, and the legendary Zombie, Richie Zombie, was sitting in the theater enjoying the film, and I'm like, oh shit, I want Zombie. So I left.
Okay.
Because whatever, I didn't want to. There were so many of these hustler guys, so I would have to pick and choose the places I would go to if I wanted to go to some of these places.
Do you ever wear a fake mustache or anything?
No.
Well, I got more questions. I'm going to save them for next week. If you have any questions for Cary, send them in at ROH Cary, and we'll see if we can answer them. This is a fun topic. There's a couple good documentaries on Deep Throat that really give you the kind of feel.
People got fleeced.
Yeah, they did. They really did. Linda Lovelace got almost nothing from that film, and there's a couple good documentaries that give you a sense of the time, to give you some visuals to go along with what you're talking about right now. So I recommend checking those out. But yeah, if you have any questions for Cary, we'll see if we can answer them. I'll save the ones I have for next week. And got some great Ring of Honor action. It feels like an abrupt 90-degree turn. And we want to be clear, although we're both associated with Ring of Honor, this is Cary's personal podcast. This is not intended to represent Ring of Honor.
Absolutely not. And these are stories from yesteryear, and they're, as we say in our opening, every story is worth telling.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is historical stuff. It just doesn't exist this way anymore. So it's like a little time capsule.
Yeah, it is very intriguing, and I'm excited to peel back the onion even further next week. I want to hear about the Christopher Street bookstore, and maybe some of the more off the beaten path non-42nd Street locations.
Okay.
All right.
That you would be more comfortable going
well,
there.
I mean, I'm a faithful man. Maybe if I was single back when I was 20 or 21.
Nothing wrong with going in a booth by yourself. Right? Just going by yourself. I'm not talking about participating with someone else.
If it's as long as it's legal.
You might have 50 minutes to kill for the bus or the train.
Of all the times I've flown or you left out of the Port Authority, even that very building, it's never crossed my mind. Why don't I go to Show World? Yeah. Anyway, we'll ask that question next week.
Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe to Last Stop Penn Station. If you'd like a nice T-shirt that represents this wonderful content that we give you, pro wrestling tees for a Last Stop Penn Station. Say it 3 times fast. Last Stop Penn Station T-shirt, or He Eats Breakfast, the Camel T-shirt. We want to thank our producer AJ from Basan Creative, and our buddy Eric with Discover Pro Wrestling, who hopefully will be hopefully this vaccine will get out. So not just Discover Pro Wrestling, but Ring of Honor Wrestling, as well as the whole entertainment industry.
AEW, WWE. Hopefully everybody can.
And all the music and theater can get back on its feet so we could have something else to look forward to. I really miss it.
I'm starting to feel hopeful. With the vaccine. And I think this might be the chance we have to. But in the meantime, wear your mask, wash your hands.
That's right.
Social distance. And reach out and connect with somebody. Maybe Zoom is still the way to go for now. But we want to thank everybody for listening to this week's Last Stop Penn Station. For Cary, I'm Ian. We'll talk to you next week when we head to the Christopher Street bookstore.
And other places.
And other assorted sexual locations. So until then, thanks for listening.
Hail you for listening to Last Stop Penn Station podcast. Rate, review, like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or at laststoppennstation.com.